One hobby for me, public speaking. This is why I do this club. I love public speaking. I love getting in front of people. Not doesn't come naturally to me, but it's a challenge. I love to challenge myself. I love to stand up and see how well I can speak in front of a room. That's one of my hobbies. And I think it's in a time like this when we're virtual, it's so important to have hobbies. I think so much of us, our jobs require so much of so much screen time. And hey, you know what? You're already home. Jump on this project. I know it's already 8 o'clock. Don't worry about it. You'll get it done. Keep on working. It's so important to take that time for yourself and have some hobbies, whether it's trading equities. I was talking earlier with a fellow member about trading equities, beekeeping, sports, lifting weights. I know we have, the new year just started. We have resolutions and we try to start new things, but what this meeting is all about is what we like to do to kind of break away from our grind, our 9 to 5. And real quick, I just want to call on some of us in the meeting. I want to get a feel for your hobbies. What do you like to do when it's your time? Catherine, do you have any hobbies that you like to jump into when work is done?
Yeah, I love to read. I always have a reading goal every year for a number of books to get through.
Phenomenal. Excellent hobby. Love it. Feeding the brain. How about Jane, any hobbies on your end?
I was just thinking, I wonder if I can consider wellness a hobby. Like whenever I have some downtime, I like to see if I can get a massage, if I can go to the sauna, steam room. I love treating myself as if I'm royalty whenever I can, pretend to not, have a job at that moment. So that's my hobby, I think.
Excellent. Not, I wouldn't say that's not the first thing that comes to mind, but absolutely. If that's your hobby, you get it done. You got to take care of your mind, body, and soul, 100%. Love it. So as this meeting progresses tonight, I want you all to just keep in mind, maybe pull some hobbies from other people. Just think about what we can do in this virtual time, in this virtual world that we're living in. How can we continue to grow? How can we continue to feed, just how Jane said, kind of feed our souls, feed our minds to get better? So keep that in mind as we progress on this journey that is our Toastmasters meeting tonight. And as we do that, let's progress into our functionaries of the evening. First off on the agenda, we have our timer doubling up as a speaker as well. We have Lucas Calafell, who will be timing our speaking segments tonight. Lucas, why don't you tell us a little about what you'll be doing tonight?
Absolutely, Mr. Toastmaster. In our prepared speech section of the meeting, what I will do is show the lights that will indicate certain time markers depending on the speech length requirements. We have one icebreaker this evening, which is speaker number 1. So the timing for that will be 4 to 6 minutes. And I will show the following backgrounds at 4 minutes, at 5 minutes, the yellow, and at 6. If the speaker falls under 3 minutes and 30 seconds or above 6 minutes and 30 seconds, they will be disqualified from being voted on for best speaker. Then in table topics, it's 1 to 2 minutes. At 1 minute, I will show the green, 1.5 yellow, and 2 minutes the red. Anyone going above 2 minutes and 30 seconds or falling below 1 minute will be disqualified from being voted on. And finally, for our speech evaluations, that's 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, I will show the green, 2.5 yellow, 3 minutes red. Any evaluator going under 1.5 minutes or over 3 minutes and 30 seconds will be ineligible to be voted on for best evaluator. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Excellent job, Lucas. Very concise description of the timer's role. Moving right along, we have our counter of the evening, Daria. If you can, please unmute yourself and give us a little explanation of what the counter's role is tonight.
Good, everyone. Greetings, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. The purpose of counter is to note words and sounds that are used as crutch or pause fillers by anyone who speaks. During this meeting, I will listen for overused words, including and, well, but, so, and you know. I will also listen for filler sounds, including and We'll also note when a speaker repeats a word or phrase such as I or this means. At the end of the meeting, I will report the number of the times each speaker uses these expressions. Thank you so much, Mr. Toastmaster.
Excellent job, Daria. Thank you so much. And I'm sure as some of us who remember being back in person, Diana, remember the bell that we have? We no longer have that virtually, but just keep it in the back of your mind. If you catch yourself going ahs, ums, just know in my head, I'm dinging you. I got a little bell. So just try to keep that there for you. Moving right along, we have well, we don't really have a grammarian. I guess I will double up as a grammarian tonight, doing my best with that. But let's have a word of the day. Let me introduce the word of the day. Today it is interact. This is a verb, and it's to act in such a way as to have an effect on each other. Another little definition for us here, just to kind of get more into it: interact, to talk or do things with other people, to act together, to come together. Very important. Like I said, today's theme is hobbies, and with the best hobbies are when we interact with each other. That's why this club, to me, is one of my favorite hobbies, because of the interaction. So let's try to use that as many times as we can in the meeting, and I'll do my best to keep track of that and give a report at the end. And last, but certainly not least on our list of functionaries tonight, our vote counter. Jane, please, a little unmute and give us a little description of the vote counter tonight.
Hey guys, so I'm going to be doubling up as the general evaluator as well as vote counter, which is the person that will be tallying up the votes for best evaluator, best table topics, and best speaker. So after each session concludes, please send me your vote for who you think won that round, and I will announce it at the end of the meeting, who won that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jane. Very important. And remember, members and guests can send votes to Jane in a private message as to who you think performed the best during their speaking segment. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Like I said at the beginning of the meeting, my favorite hobby, public speaking. So let's have our first speech of the day. Tonight, we have an icebreaker, something for those who are not familiar. Icebreaker is the first speech in the club. It means you're brand new to the club. Maybe you've come to a couple meetings, you've scoped it out, and now you're giving your very first speech. That's what we're about to witness right now. Coming to the floor, Mr. Mitchell Sisto with his speech, Never Again. Never Again, Mitchell Sisto. The floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow members and guests, the fear of speaking in public has cost me quite a bit of money and recognition in my professional life. Tonight, I'm going to share with you part of the journey that led me here in front of my computer screen, giving this icebreaker speech to you all. I've always been a bit of an extroverted introvert in the sense that I love being around people and I crave social interaction throughout the day. In fact, I find myself going to these little Cuban cafecito places like La Carreta and Sergio's several times a day, not because I love coffee that much, but, well, actually I do, but really because I like to interact with the staff on the other side of the bar and the people that go there. It's kind of like the highlight of my day and I really enjoy it. That being said, I'm also very laid back and quiet. And I think for those reasons, me working as a nightclub security guard throughout college was a perfect fit. I was paid to basically stand off to the side and just watch and observe. That eventually led me into the world of executive protection, where I eventually started working with Justin Bieber. I worked with him for a few years, and he obviously spent all of his time on stage in interviews and being swarmed by paparazzi, and I was off in the shadows, again, just watching and observing. One thing I always thought to myself was, how the hell does this kid get up on stage and get in the center of attention and stay so comfortable, so calm, and so collected all the time? And that's one thing I really respected about him, and actually one of the reasons why I joined this group. After a little while of doing that, I got burnt out and I got tired of living from a suitcase. So I wanted to move back home, Miami, and find a career there. So I did a little bit of research and I got into medical device sales. Basically, I faked it till I made it. I somehow aced the interviews and I found myself on day one of a medical sales job. My day one marching orders from my boss were to go to all my target accounts and put together a presentation for all of the key decision makers in those accounts. So the thought of getting a group of doctors and administrators and nursing staff together in this room and presenting on a topic that I wasn't all that comfortable with anyway, kind of made me nauseous. So what I did was I set up these meetings individually, one-on-one, so that I can kind of get around it. And you know what? It took a while to get to everybody, but it worked out really well because my first year went great. My second year, even better. I was the #1 rep in the country for the entire year, that second year, up until I found out what comes along with being the #1 rep. And that's the national sales meeting and the rep of the year speech. Each year, the company gets all of its reps together in person for this national sales meeting. And during this meeting, they have an awards gala where the #1 reps in each division are called up to give this acceptance speech on stage with a microphone and a spotlight in front of 3,000 colleagues. Yeah, no thanks. It seemed impossible. There was no way that I could do it. So what did I do? I took my foot off the gas. I intentionally didn't push for that additional sale, hoping that the people behind me would surpass me and that I wouldn't have to get up there and give that speech. And that's exactly what happened. I watched the girl who actually ended up finishing #1 go up and give her speech, and I felt terrible. I'm a pretty competitive guy. I played sports most of my life, and this was like throwing a game. I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, and I vowed to myself, never again. So fast forward to 2021, I worked equally as hard, doubly as hard, and I became rep of the year again, second year in a row. But this time I sustained it the entire year, all the way until the end, and I finished the year as rep of the year. I've got to give that speech now, actually in a few weeks at the end of February. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous, not looking forward to it. But honestly, after joining this group and spending a little bit of time with you guys virtually, I feel a little better about it. So one thing about me is I'm big into self-development and bringing up my weak points. Some of us file these away out of sight so that we can forget about them and not feel bad for their existence in the first place. Not me and not us. All of you here today are the type who tackle your fears head on. And like me, one of these fears was inevitably at one point public speaking. My goal with attending these Toastmaster meetings is way beyond getting past the nervousness associated with public speaking. I know many of you are at that point now. Sure, I want to feel confident addressing a group of people, regardless of the size. But beyond that, I want to be an effective speaker. I want to be able to speak to a group of people and command all of their attention and presence and have my message resonate with them and shape their perspective. We've all heard how important it is to set big goals, and that is my Mount Everest. Thank you all so much for giving me the chance to speak to you tonight. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Excellent job, Mitchell. Excellent job. First speech in the club, rocked it out of the park. And one of the words you said in there was effective. And I think that's what that speech was. Very effective. Congratulations, Mitchell. Phenomenal job. First step into becoming a phenomenal public speaker. And best of luck to you with your speech coming up. Great job. Let's move right along with an individual who is relatively new to the club, has given this will be his third speech in the club, but the presence that this individual displays, I'm always in awe. I'm taking notes. I can't wait to get back in person to watch this individual give a speech in person. I think it's just going to be that next level. So looking forward to that. Let's welcome to the floor Felix Jimenez with his speech, "The King of the Epiphytes." The King of the Epiphytes, Felix Jimenez.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and thank you for those kind words. Let me begin by sharing my screen and I'll start my speech. For the record, I just want to state unequivocally, in my humble opinion, that home improvement channels on cable TV should be outlawed. I'm talking about shows like Love It or List It, Property Brothers, Fixer to Fabulous, Fixer Upper. You get the picture. Viewing these shows should be punishable by a slow and painful death, with the exception of the classic PBS show, This Old House, but only the episodes with Bob Vila. My wife, on the other hand, watches these shows all day. And TCM, but we'll leave that for another day. The problem with these shows is that they transmit these subliminal messages that interact with your brain, resulting in your spouse suddenly suggesting that, you know what, a clawfoot tub is just what we need. Or it would be a really nice touch if our living room walls were covered in shiplap. Yes, there is such a thing as an interior siding called shiplap. The most famous person on these shows is named Joanna Gaines. Joanna and her husband Chip have made millions of dollars by telling people to put shiplap on the walls of their homes. Joanna is a goddess of home improvement shows. She recently vacationed in Miami and discovered a very large fern, which she shipped back to Texas to put in her store. This is a picture of Joanna on her Instagram page with sitting underneath the fern, which is really not a good idea, inside her store. She even gave the fern a name, Earl, and she hung it inside her home improvement store, which is called The Silo, located in Waco, Texas. It has since become an internet sensation, having its own Instagram page. The popularity of this fern, known as a staghorn or elkhorn fern, as you can imagine, has taken off. I myself have several of these ferns, which I've always admired, but never really gave them much thought until now. About 30 years ago, a neighbor gave me a cutting of a small staghorn fern, which over the years grew huge. I eventually took cuttings from that fern and started several others that I gave away to family and friends. This is a fern which was started about 25 years ago from a small cutting, which my son is hanging from the back tree of his house. And there's my granddaughter pointing at it. The photograph is a little deceiving as she is not underneath the fern, as that would be child abuse. This fern is about 4 feet wide and weighs several hundred pounds. With the recent craze in staghorn ferns, I became curious and began researching them. Staghorn ferns are epiphytes, or air plants. In other words, plants that get their nutrients by interacting with the moisture from the air and from the rain and anything else that is in the surrounding area. The most popular epiphytes are orchids. And the best thing about these plants is that they're virtually indestructible. You hardly ever have to water or fertilize them. And they grow so large that I call them the king of epiphytes. They grow well attached to the trunk of a tree, a slab of wood, a piece of coral rock, or my particular preference, which is in a wire basket suspended from a tree. These ferns grow so large, they eventually encompass the entire basket. And the coolest thing about it is you can cut out pieces of a large plant, which are called pups, which you can then use to create a new plant. And over the years, it can grow that large. The plant recovers from the area that you cut by a new growth, which covers the area that you remove the pup from. There are 18 species of staghorn and elkhorn ferns. The elkhorn have leaves that are somewhat thinner than the staghorn, and the name is derived from the leaves looking like deer antlers. Originally found in Australia, Africa, and Southeast Asia, they are non-native to Florida, but they do very well in hot and humid South Florida. The ends of the leaves sometimes develop brown ends, which are mistaken for burnt or diseased leaves, but are actually sporangium. In other words, seeds, which are jettisoned at high speeds to interact with the surrounding environment until they find just the right medium where they will grow into a new plant. Staghorn ferns are the second oldest plants dating back to the Devonian period 430 million years ago. I call them the Rodney Dangerfield of plants as they get no respect, at least until now. I say that because you don't need to do anything to them. Every once in a while, you can throw a banana peel in the center for some potassium, and that's about it. Some of you may have heard of the Matheson family, a pioneering family of Miami. The Mathesons owned parts of Key Biscayne, and they donated Crandon Park and the eponymous Matheson Hammock Park to Miami-Dade County. The Matheson family recently donated a 75-year-old staghorn to Fairchild Tropical Gardens. And as you can see from this photo, the fern is over 6 feet wide and estimated to weigh about 500 pounds. In conclusion, if we ever get back to live meetings, and as an incentive to come back to live meetings, and if the rules apply, I will bring a staghorn pup as a prize for our table topics winner. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Excellent job, Felix. Thank you so much. And I believe the rules do apply. I will be expecting a staghorn as a gift. Not for, I'm just as a, you know, as a prize for the table topics. Not saying I'm going to win, but I'm going to give it my all on that one. Can't wait. Excellent job, Felix. Thank you so much. Let's move right along into our third and final prepared speech of the evening. Our president, our leader for the 2021-2022 term is great. Always learning from him. It is my pleasure to introduce Lucas Calafell with his speech, beingbetter.com. Beingbetter.com. Excuse me, before I jump into his introduction, there is a little blurb on his speech. Our third speaker will talk to us about internal PR and some best practices that may have improved the situation that made headlines. With that, beingbetter.com. Lucas Calafell, the floor is yours.
Can everyone see me? All right. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, have you heard of better.com? Maybe you have. I never heard of better.com until I started scrolling on Facebook, as we all do, or on Instagram, or our favorite news app. And I saw a couple of headlines and that focused on better.com, and most notably their CEO. Now, what is better.com exactly? Better.com is basically, according to what I looked up, a mortgage origination company. Now, this is not a small startup company. This is a company with a $4 billion valuation based on numbers in 2021. Now, as I was scrolling on Facebook, I saw this headline and it jumped out at me because, of course, that's what headlines are designed to do. They're designed to jump out at you and to capture your attention, and they want you to click on that article. Well, that's how news and media make money. They make you click on that article. So this is the first headline that I saw, and this is what intrigued me to begin with. Better.com CEO fires 900 employees over Zoom. It's like, whoa, that's crazy. Let me click and read into this. So I was reading, and eventually I found a YouTube video where someone was recording the Zoom conversation with, of course, hundreds of employees in a Zoom call with the CEO. And I listened to the recording, and what I gathered from it was that the CEO could have certainly handled things a little bit better, right? This is not good news in any circumstance. Well, maybe if he said, well, we're firing you, but we're going to give you a $1 million severance, well, then I think some circumstances may actually improve. But in this case, it's very difficult news to share. And I felt that it was lacking a bit of empathy, was very short and to the point. And just to briefly paraphrase or summarize, the CEO essentially said, well, if you're on this call, you're one of the unfortunate people that are being terminated immediately. And of course, there were some other comments as well, some background as far as the reasons why that happened, performance, and a variety of other things, the market. But once again, it's not necessarily it's not necessarily the news that one delivers, it's more about how the news is delivered. So that was headline number one. And then I later saw headline number two, which, as you see here, execs resign from company after the controversial mass layoffs. So I said, oh, this got me hooked now. What happened? I looked inside and then I read that the VP of Public Relations and the head of communications had both resigned. And to me, that was like the smoking gun. When you have two people whose focus is solely on communications, one external, one internal, they resigned. To me, it was a smoking gun that something clearly went wrong in terms of how they were going to deliver this kind of news to their employees. Then I continued to follow the story, and then I saw a third headline, which is listed here. So we have that apology, the action, and that caused a lot of controversy, a lot of negative press in the media, and now the CEO had to then apologize for the way he had delivered this news and the way that this was carried out. And then we got to this headline. So if you look at the trajectory, you see one action happened and all of these dominoes started to fall, leading eventually to the CEO having to take a step back until they could restabilize and talk to their employees and provide a space for their current talent to essentially either vent or figure out what's going on. Now, there are a couple of things that I read in a PR blog on how this situation could have potentially been improved. Once again, I'm not trying to make the claim that the company didn't have to lay off 900 people, but it's all about how that information is delivered. And the first tidbit that I got was to encourage cross-departmental communication. Large corporations have communications teams that can craft messaging and that can provide a clear and concise communication strategy, both to external stakeholders, but also to the internal staff and internal stakeholders within a company. The second thing is to plan communications. The part of the planning process involves drafting communications, having it revised by multiple people to really get the best message out there. And in addition to that, it requires planning communication. Does it require simply just one message to a particular audience? Maybe it requires multiple messages, and that has to be accounted for. That particular part of internal messaging of public relations needs to be at the forefront, because once the information is out there, as we know, everything lives on the internet, and that is going to remain there for everyone to see. Now, we don't necessarily know whether all of this controversy has negatively impacted Better.com's ability to recruit talent, or for that matter, to keep the talent that they currently have. That is yet to be seen, and maybe over time we'll get an idea. But I think that by following those two tidbits, it provides a starting point for companies, individuals, to basically have a concise communication strategy so that oneself or a company is not the main character in a cautionary tale. Mr. Toastmaster.
Excellent job, Lucas. Phenomenal presentation skills as always. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to type you the time. Okay. So with that, Mr. Timer, AKA speaker number 3, Lucas Calafell, can we get a timers report for our speakers this evening?
Yes, we sure can. I put the times in the chat, but Mitchell ended at 5:27, Felix at 6:30, and myself at 7:14. So all 3 of us qualified to be voted on.
Excellent. Thank you, Lucas. So that means, just as Lucas said, everyone qualified. So please go ahead and cast your votes to Jane, whichever of the 3 you felt was the best speech of the night, and we will present that winner at the end of the meeting. Let's move right along. Normally we would have someone else take the floor. I know you're all tired of hearing my droning voice at this point in the meeting, but I'm wearing multiple hats tonight. Going to put on the old table topics master hat, and we're going to move on to, in my opinion, one of the more fun aspects of the meeting, table topics. For our guests, table topics is an opportunity for us to speak extemporaneously on a question that we do not know prior. It's going to be a random question addressed to members, and if a guest wants to participate, you can as well. Just a disclaimer, if you are a guest and you do participate, you cannot be voted for at the end. So that's for members only, just to let you know. I'm going to start off with members, and if we have enough time, I'll see if we have any any guests, that would like to participate. So let's jump right in. Our responses this evening for table topics, 1 to 2 minutes is what we're looking for. First question of the evening. If you had to take part in all of your favorite hobbies in the day, you have, well, let's say 16 hours, sleep for 8, so you have 16 hours awake. If you had to take part in that, how would you allocate those hours to your hobbies? How many hobbies would you have? How long would you spend with them? Let's go with Daria. Daria, how would you allocate all of your hobbies in a 16-hour day?
Thank you, Brian, and fellow Toastmasters. This is a wonderful question for me. I feel very positive about it. I also enjoy hobbies. I think interacting with others and the world and ourselves is important. Even though most of my hobbies are individual type of activities, I like to train Muay Thai. That's fighting. It's kind of like kickboxing, but it also uses knees and elbows. I also like to practice yoga as a yoga teacher and just for myself and others. I enjoy it more when I can interact with others because then I get to encourage people to better themselves and find more confidence in their own bodies. I think I would start with some yoga, either with myself or others. I would do some Muay Thai and hopefully spar with people, but not get too injured. I also am a big swimmer. Maybe I would take a stroll at the beach. I enjoy the beach and the sunshine. And have a swim, swimming after fighting because that stretches out, even though yoga seems like it would more, but really swimming does a great job for that, especially if I have bruises. And then maybe enjoy some good food, because who doesn't like good food? Jane was saying how she enjoys pampering herself, and I think good food is part of that. Then I would probably end the hobbies of the day with some reading. I picked up Ken Follett's latest book. I like him as an author. I think this book is not gotten my attention yet, but if I put some time into it, it will grab my interest and I will be hooked on it and spend a couple hours before going to sleep. So that's how I would spend my day with hobbies.
Excellent. A full day, jumping from hobby to hobby. Excellent job, Daria. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on. What is your least favorite thing to do with others? What is your least favorite thing to do with others? Rachel.
Thank you, Brian. That's a really good question. When you were asking the question at first, I was thinking, what is the least favorite thing to do? And then my least favorite thing to do is probably doing chores by myself. But I think doing it with someone else does make it a little bit better. I think when it comes to my least favorite thing to do with the other person, I think it would be working late at night. Hours past my normal working hours, especially when we have a very important event or typically like a lab the following day. So I have worked to 9 or 10 p.m. occasionally to work with the others because we have a lab that's going on in the following day. And for me, that's always making me very nervous because I don't know how that's going to go. And then also at the same time, I think also everybody is stressed as well. So people get a little bit meaner as they're working too much and also as they're hungry, I myself included as well. So I think, yeah, that'd be my least favorite thing to do is to dealing with my coworkers after it's already been 10 hours. Thank you.
Excellent answer, Rachel. Absolutely. That's one I didn't think of, but 100%. That's when the crankiness comes out, the hangriness. It's not a fun time. I agree. Great answer. Next up, the year is 1922, 100 years ago to the day. What activity do you partake in to pass the time? So we are 100 years in the past. What activity do you partake in to pass the time? Lucas.
Okay, 100 years passing the time. Honestly, I'm not quite sure if there would be that much to do. I think I'd probably be working, trying to feed a family. It all depends on where I'm at. Assuming that I'm in the United States, where I'm at, I could be out in the middle of the country on a farm, and I guess there's not much to do aside from keep the farm going, selling the agricultural products that come from it. Or maybe I have contributed to the urbanization of America's cities and moved out of the rural countryside and went to the city and decided to get a job somewhere. I'm not exactly sure, but what I can tell you is this, is that in the city, I'm sure I could come up with a variety of things to do. I know baseball existed back then, so yes, I could have checked out a baseball game. It would be pretty cool if it was New York City, but you get to see the Yankees. If they were even the Yankees at that time, I frankly have no clue. Maybe the Chicago Cubs. Not entirely sure, but I guess I'll just leave it at watching baseball. Back to you.
Excellent job. Thank you, Lucas. Yeah, definitely. I think baseball was around back then. America's pastime. Great hobby. Go watch some baseball for sure. We have Valentine's Day quickly approaching. If it wasn't for this question, I would have forgotten it and been in big trouble. So it's quickly approaching. In your opinion, who is Valentine's Day really for? Who is it really for, in your opinion? Mario.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics. Well, Valentine's Day is for your significant other. It doesn't matter if you are a guy or a gal. I think Valentine's Day is to ensure that they are aware that you're aware of their existence. So I would have to say that, you know, it's also so that you don't get in trouble. You know, I've had that mistake before where I have actually forgotten at least like once or twice. Or but you know, I don't. How can I say this? I really think that it's about your significant other, and to ensure that they don't, that you remember them, and it doesn't matter what you get them. You can get them, even if you get them something late, you know, it's the thought that counts. So I have a habit of being terrible at choosing the right gift. So I've bought my wife certain gifts and then she doesn't like. One time I bought her those little rings, those little bracelets that come off. I don't know what they're called. They have a name. They sell them in the mall, and she hated it. And I felt bad. I was like, oh, why do I even bother doing all this? So I think if I was to give a tip to my fellow Toastmasters here, it would be to buy chocolate, buy donuts, you know, buy food. I think you can never go wrong by buying something to eat. So yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Great answer, Mario. Great job. Way to keep it safe. I don't know if your significant other was in the room. It was good answer. Way to keep it safe. Way to stay out of trouble. Excellent. Let's move right along. What is the silliest thing you are good at? What is the silliest thing you're good at, Jane?
Thank you for that question. I don't know if it's silly, but it's random. I'm a fast typer. That's not like that's not a silly one. So I type at like 120 words per minute. I used to brag about it. Now at this day and age, that sounds like a ridiculous thing to brag about, but usually like it earns me this infamy in the office, like when it's super quiet and it just sounds like it sounds like I don't even know, like a washing machine, like a dryer. Someone's gonna say like, what the hell is that? Who is that? And it's usually me. And then that's usually how I get introduced to that new colleague. Aside from that, I really want to I'm really good at making my dog howl. Like I can when I start to howl, I get her into thinking that, you know, she's a wolf, and then we kind of have this bonding moment. So I think that's another silly thing that I'm good at. I don't care if everybody else can do this. No, I'm particularly good at howling like my dog. And that is all. Thank you.
Excellent job, Jane. That should wrap up our table topics this evening. Great answers all around. I do just want to give the invitation. Are there any guests? Is there any? We have one. I'm going to say we have time for one more question. Is there any guests that would like to participate, answer a question?
I'll go for it. I'll go for it if no one's going for it.
Excellent. 2, aka Dose.
Yes, Dose.
Vamonos
Dose. Vamos Dose.
So here's actually this is one of my favorite questions, that I've actually been asked this question a long time ago, and the answer, I think it makes you go deep. Maybe not. Maybe you keep it light, and maybe, you know, we'll see how you do it here. But your question is, what is the most notable act of kindness you have ever witnessed? The most notable act of kindness you have ever witnessed.
Oh, that is a really good question. I think this is kind of a corny one. And I hope it resonates with a lot of people. But I think the most notable act of kindness that I've witnessed is, without a doubt, from my parents. I come from a family. You know, you might call this a cop-out answer, but this is how I feel. I'm from a family of immigrants. My parents essentially came over with nothing, the usual immigrant story, and everything that they've done from the moment they set foot in America is really just for me and for my brother. Right, my dad was a doctor in Vietnam. My mom had her own business, but they came over. My dad had to find a new job as a clerk in a small office. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, you know, domestic engineer, just making sure that everything ran on time. And it's like every moment I see or think back to how our family was 10 years ago, there's a lot of selflessness that I associate with it. And so, yeah, really, if I were to sum it up, the biggest act of kindness that I've witnessed is just my parents' selflessness to me and my brother.
Phenomenal. Thank you for that answer. Absolutely, applause all around. Yeah, you know, definitely being aware and giving props to the parents for sure. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that too. Okay, timers report. Lucas, can we get a quick one from you?
Yes, we can. I am actually posting all the times in the chat. Do note too, thank you for your answer, but as far as voting goes, one can only vote for a member of the choice. So everyone qualifies. So feel free to send your vote by private message to Jane, our vote counter.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Lucas. Everyone qualifies. Now, without skipping a beat, let's move right along to the final portion of our meeting, the evaluation portion. I'm going to go ahead and send it to Jane, our general evaluator of the evening. And Jane, you can go ahead and give a brief description of the role tonight and the introduction of our evaluators.
Sure, I was totally prepared for this part. So fellow guests and Toastmasters, now that we're in the evaluation part of the evening, we will have 3 evaluators evaluate our 3 speakers of the night. That would be Mitchell, Lucas, and Felix, not in that order. And at the end of that, we will tally up the votes and I will give my general evaluation of the evening. Back to you. Oh, do I have to introduce the first evaluator? I do. Okay. So the first evaluator of the evening is going to be our Rachel Zhu.
Thank you so much, Jane. Mitchell, you did an excellent job with your I Speak speech tonight. And then congratulations on your first speech in Toastmaster, and then also being the sales rep of the year twice in a row. You had great clarity throughout your speech. And then I like your vocal variety and then also your eye contact as well. You started your speech with really captivating statement. The fear of public speaking has cost you both money and recognition as well. But you were really composed throughout your speech and showed a really great comfort level, especially for a first-time speaker in this new different club. And then also you engage your audience really well as well. And we were all really intrigued from you being a security guard of a nightclub and executive protection of Justin Bieber, and then also sales rep of your company now. And then also I think it's really interesting the story you told about you purposely don't want to be the best sales rep of the year, your first year, because your fear of public speaking. And then I'm sure that has cost you not only the recognition, but also the commission side as well. So that was definitely, and then also you thought about it, I felt like a few months before the end of the year. So that was really interesting. And thank you for sharing that story with us. And then also I understand that it can be intimidating interacting with physicians sometimes, as I myself working in the medical device company. So I know that sometimes us being on the medical device, it can be difficult to engage with somebody that you think knows everything about what you're talking about. But I think you being the best sales rep of the year of your company demonstrated your expertise and then also your ability to deliver your content. And then I think everybody has butterfly before their speech, but I think practice does make perfect. And for the first speech that you did in Toastmaster, I say that is excellent. And then my only comment is that you can use more gesture, like if you can use more body language in front of people, I think that would be even more excellent. So really looking forward to hearing more speeches from you in our club, and then also looking forward to hearing your hearing how your upcoming speech goes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate that. Or I'm sorry, Rachel.
Jane, you got evaluator too.
Sorry. Thank you, Rachel. That was an excellent evaluation for our icebreaker, Mitchell. And now on to our second evaluator of the evening, Mario Litano.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by saying that it was an honor to evaluate this speech tonight. I really enjoyed listening about these Staghorn firms. It was well delivered. The PowerPoint slides smoothly interacted with the content of the speech. I think that you also clearly and effectively interacted with the audience about how passionate about you are with this particular hobby and topic. Your placement on the screen was great as well. As far as I can tell, Toastmaster Felix is a seasoned speaker, and it really shows in this particular speech. And so let's talk about the content of the speech. So the purpose of the project is to discuss a topic that the audience is not familiar with. And I know absolutely nothing about Staghorn ferns and these plants, and probably not the most sophisticated Toastmaster in the Coral Gables Toastmasters. So I'm gonna bet that there are other people here that, they don't really know anything about the Staghorn fern or what an epiphyte is. And so I really think that you achieved your result. And I was really impressed. But I believe you did a great job overall. And it was a good speech. I actually am really interested now about these Staghorn ferns. I would love to have one in the back of my yard. And the way that you introduced it with the PowerPoint, it's kind of creepy. It was like, what is this plant? Is this like an alien that's gonna like grow and take over the world? It seems like it. But yeah, it was really interesting. I really liked it. Some of the things that Toastmaster Felix can do perhaps to have a stronger speech is to maybe give a little bit of background about the particular title of the speech. I had no idea what an epiphyte is. I believe it's something about a plant that is like a fern. I was hoping to hear more about that. What else? Yeah, the audio was a little bit crackling sometimes, but yeah, I think it was a commendable speech. Thank you so much, Felix. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mario, for your evaluation. I agree that presentation was immensely interesting, as it can be for ferns, which it was very interesting. On to our final evaluator for the night, Catherine, evaluating Lucas's speech.
Lucas, you're the great Zoom tech magician. So at the top of the call, you shared you wanted to, work on your placement of yourself in the screen and eye contact. And at first it seemed like pretty straightforward things, but you kicked off your speech and you had this amazing visual effect of popping yourself out of the screen and into a PowerPoint. And it just shows how much you prepare, because not only the tech, but that you shared, you were, concerned about the eye contact and the placement, because it was just so evident. It became clear why it was a little bit more of a challenge. You stepped it up and you did great with the eye contact and the placement. I appreciated that you did place yourself slightly off center from the PowerPoint, because that was the center for our screens for the audience. So it was really thought out, and it just goes to show how much you always prepare for the speeches. And it was really well done. I think it was a really cool device that we all learned from today. And then from there, you went into this trajectory of betterment.com that just ended up on this train wreck to worse.com. And you engaged us in that story. And it was really fun because you also did a nice little soft start, which I think allowed the audience to get over this cool special effect you did and ground us in the story. So we weren't just awed by that, but then we got to really place ourselves in the story and share with you kind of the comical silliness of this company just really being misguided. The one thing here that might be a cool device in the future is you had the headlines, but since it was just such a stark white screen, I was kind of looking for another visual. So maybe there was like, if you could have used like a PR meter or like emoji to kind of help us track that story of how it went from horrible to even rock bottom. That could have been a fun device to use. And then with that, you shared the story, and then you shared what the professionals thought about it, these analysts. So it was really, we got to see all the type of things you learned from this public relations project. But what I really enjoyed about that is you gave your own spin on it too, and your own interpretation of the events and what that meant, like calling out it was such a red herring that these other internal people were resigning, and you gave us kind of more of an insight into the events than just reporting what you read online. So you definitely did work from just your research and learning from this to even wowing us with your visual skills. So it was a great speech tonight.
All right. Lucas, do we have a quick timers report?
Yes, we do. I'm going to go ahead and share it in chat here. There we are, everyone qualified.
Excellent. Great job, everyone all around. Real quick, Jane, do you want to introduce get the functionary reports and then give your general evaluation of the meeting?
Sure thing. So as the grammarian, what is your review of tonight?
Touche. Thank you, Jane. Tonight, as grammarian, our word was interact. I didn't even use it tonight. We really didn't have too much usage. I heard Mitchell say it once. I did not count anyone else use it. If you did, feel free to stone my house after the meeting. Fine, good luck finding where I live, but I'll give you the pass because I missed you on that one. Apologies. I did, Mitchell, real quick. I loved how you said in your speech, you said, not me, not us, kind of giving a little inspiration there. You're not going to take anything lying down. You're not going to allow the fear of speaking to sabotage you from becoming the #1 salesperson. So not me, not us in this group. Love the way you use that. Felix, in talking about the staghorn fern, if I'm not mistaken, talking about the staghorn fern, you call it the Rodney Dangerfield of ferns, and I love that reference because it gets no respect. So excellent job there. And Lucas, I love how you said you might contribute to the urbanization of American cities. Just that term in a table topics answer is not easy to come up with on the spot like that. So phenomenal use of the word urbanization. Good job. That is my grammarian report for this evening. Jane, back to you.
Thank you, Brian. Juggling these two roles right now. I'll counter. What is your review and count of the night?
Good evening, everyone. Again, a little preface to my strict counter report. I have been an ESL teacher for a few years, and so I'm strict with myself and with my students. And please don't get offended by the numbers. Just they're there so that we can all better ourselves. A lot of us do, I think, a lot. I wasn't very good at counting my own. I know I said and, I think, and use the fillers. So here we have for everyone. Lucas, you said well twice. So 4 times, like once, and 4 ends. Felix, you are impeccable and had 0 repeats from what I've heard. Catherine, you had 1, I think, 4 ums, 1 like, 1 but, 1 and 2 ends. Brian, only 1 and 1 Mario, 2 I think, 7 ahs, 7 ums, 1 but, 2 eyes. Rachel, you had 4 I think, 4 4 ah, 9 one so, one like. Jane, one I think. 4 one so, 2 likes, and just so, maybe once or twice. 2, did 2 leave? I think he left, but he had 1 Mitchell, you were also really great for your first time, and it was just 2 but 7 ands. So I'm a stickler for catching everything, and I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just so that we can all better ourselves at being cleaner, because I think of when you write, we shouldn't write these things in whatever we're writing, emails or speeches. Thank you all.
Excellent, Daria. I think it's actually great that you're a stickler for these things, because trust me, we need it, and that's what helps us grow. And finally, I'm blanking on the last role.
Any thoughts on the meeting, Jane? Any evaluation of how it went?
Yes, but wouldn't I do that after the votes, or no, I do that before the votes. Sorry, it's been a while, guys. All right, perfect. All right, so to explain to everybody, guests, my role as a general evaluator is to evaluate everything that takes place during the meeting as a whole this evening. As you may have noticed, it's been a while. I'm a little rusty on the itinerary, but thankfully my fellow Toastmasters are always on point. They're always aware of how the schedule goes. So firstly, we had a great icebreaker speech that I believe speaks to the reason that many of us join a Toastmasters club, which is that our fear of public speaking will hold us back and be a hindrance to our development in our career or just our self-development in our lives. So I thought that was a really great icebreaker. And for the second speech, Felix's warm demeanor, wit, and command of vocabulary had us enthralled to learn about epiphytes. And finally, we had Lucas's bust floating on screen, which I loved. I think we all loved it. It was a great creativity for Zoom. The grammarian was MIA this evening, but Brian promptly filled that role with an impromptu word of the day, interact. I did notice a few people using it. I think Daria used it as well. And the topic of the evening was hobbies, and our Toastmaster Brian had great questions at the start and table topics questions relevant to this topic. And well, the meeting started a little bit tardy at 7:08, but I think we got rolling quite efficiently after that. And yeah, I think it was a bit sparse turnout, but good amount of guests to members, 9 members and 5 guests. So I think it was a good meeting. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jane. And thank you for catching the Daria's use of the word of the day. I apologize, Daria, for that. And for those of you who don't know, Jane and I joined the club around the same time, close to 3 years ago. So I like to, it's kind of fun putting her in the hot seat there. I saw her not knowing what the next step was. It was fun. I enjoyed that. Appreciate that laugh. Just to close out the meeting, my final thoughts, everyone, we heard about some good hobbies tonight, some Muay Thai, yoga, even working late with coworkers, not really a hobby, but something that we all hate doing, but that's it's an interesting take on hobbies and events outside of work, dealing with work. So I hope we all took the time, learned from each other, maybe got some ideas of different hobbies, and we're going to take that outside of this meeting and continue to grow with these speeches, continue to grow outside of work. Remember, step away from those screens, go for a walk, do yoga. Hopefully that's what, we got some plans right now. It's kind of late in the evening, but I'm going to do. I'm going to go for a walk. Weather's beautiful, been on the screen all day. So I'm looking forward to wrap this meeting up. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being your Toastmaster this evening. Before we end the meeting, let's go to our president with the final thoughts and final business information for the club. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, on leading another successful meeting for our club. The first thing I'd like to do is get our winners for tonight's meeting. Jane, feel free to share.
Will do. So for best speaker, it was pretty much tied. Like it was like Felix Mitchell. And I'm pleased to announce Mitchell as the winner for tonight's speech. And for best table topics, we have Lucas. With your 1920s list of hobbies. And finally, for best evaluator, I must say it was a landslide. We have Catherine.
All right.
Back to you,
Thank
Lucas.
Janine. Thank you, Jane. I think I won table topics just because of the urbanization of American cities. It's got to be that. It's got to be that. All right, let's hear from our Vice President of Public Relations. Rachel, take it away.
Thank you, Lucas. Going to share my screen. Okay, so guys, do you know that we have an Instagram and then we also have a YouTube channel? So follow us on Instagram and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So for Instagram, you can see what is going on and then the event and then the photos of our like recent activities. And for example, this one over here, we recently had a Christmas dinner get together. And then also since we post the first place, our table topic, and then also we post the best speaker of the evening, and then you can also share that with your friends as well. And then also for our YouTube channel, you can catch up with a previous meeting if you missed the meeting, or if you are feeling really dangerous and then you want to listen to yourself speaking, you can always go back to the previous meeting and then to listen to your speech and listen to your table topic as well. And then that's usually a great way to be able to see and then to be able to hear how the other people see and hear you. And then that's a great way to improve public speaking. So here are the two QR codes. This one is to this our Instagram account, and then this one is our YouTube channel. And then the next thing I want to do is that we are going to take a group photo, and then that photo is going to go to our website. So for those of you that don't want to be on our website, feel free to stop the video. And everyone else, get ready. Let's do the group photo. And then I'm going to count to 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rachel, once again for that information and for taking our club photo. A couple of other things just to mention. The Area 54 table topics and international speech contest is February 16th. So next Wednesday at 7 p.m. This does not conflict with our regular meeting date and time. As we all experienced, we had our club contest happen at our last meeting, in which Jasmine Sandoval won first place in the Table Topics Club contest, which means that she is now advancing to the Area 54 contest. The winner of that contest will go on to Division E, which includes a much larger scope of clubs. And then eventually the winner will then go to the District 47 contest, which covers Southeast Florida and the Bahamas. So Toastmasters clubs in, well, that very large space, I guess you could say. So I will send in my meeting recap email, I will send the link to that because it does require registration. It is free, of course. So if you want to support Jasmine as she competes, let's go ahead and show her some Coral Gables Toastmasters support there. The next thing is a point of accomplishment is that we earned another point for the Distinguished Club program. Our officers participated in a second round of officer training, which helps us show our success as a club to Toastmasters International, the international organization, and helps us to get recognition. The second thing is, well, actually not the second, the fourth thing or third thing is to mark your calendars, our members, mark your calendars, Saturday, April 2nd. We are going to celebrate our club's 67th anniversary. So our club was founded and started on April 1st, 1955. We're not going to do it on the 1st because it is on Friday, so we want to be conscientious of that. But this the day after, we are going to have an in-person event to celebrate the longevity of our club. And we have not yet decided exactly what we're going to do, and we will let the members know once we come up with a general idea. But if you have something specific that you would hope that we could do, feel free to share it with myself or Brian, and we will certainly take that into consideration. So once again, mark your calendar, Saturday, April 2nd, most likely going to be during the day. So just keep that in mind. And now I would like to officially close the meeting. So what I will do is stop the recording